Good morning. This is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast, where CEOs, CMOs, and communications experts share their real advice. It's 5 questions under 9 minutes because we get to it real fast. So let's get to it. I'm so excited to have today's guest on. And if you sense this, could you please tell us who you are and what you do, Jennifer?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Garrard. I'm the Vice President of Human Resources at Brother International, based out of New Jersey. I run the HR function for the company, so talent marketing, recruiting, leadership development, compensation benefits, things like that, with a heavy emphasis on diversity and inclusion and communications through our employees, but also to our candidates.
I love that. You have such an important job, obviously. And this podcast is all around communication and creating connections. And so when I speak with other leaders across different fields, I hear that creating authentic connections can be challenging when it's very noisy. And that deals with employees, customers, partners, et cetera. What's your take on that?
So Brother's motto globally is at your side, and we try to approach all of our interactions with that in mind. And it actually makes things really simple for us because for me, any candidate is also a customer. Any customer could also end up being an employee one day. Brother treats their channel partners and everyone that we work with that idea of our job is to enrich their lives and make things better. So when we use that approach with any of our customers or our candidates, our employees, it's really consistent to have that authenticity. I think that Brother prides themselves on really being able to support. So whether it's our customer service or, we've got Facebook channels around crafting and Pinterest sites. We've got a lot of things to engage our employees, especially during the pandemic. And if you look at all of those things separately, they might seem disparate, but they're actually not. So having those connections and communicating and sharing our core values is something that we weave into everything we do, which brings the company together. And I also think it makes a lot of our customers and channel partners feel like part of the family.
I love that. And I love that you bring in core values because obviously that creates such an authentic connection when people can rally around a common set of values, right? And I also love the word that you use, consistency, because to be genuine, you have to be consistent at it too. Otherwise, it creates a lot of confusion. And when you have that confusion, then, the trust factor is at risk. Do you have any other real advice for other leaders? Is there anything else that you think is really important?
So you mentioned trust. For me, I think that if you are consistent in how you treat people, you can build that trust. And the past year has shown us so much disruption and uncertainty. And companies that have managed to weather this have really been the ones that are honest. And what I've learned personally is that our employees are significantly more resilient and agile than maybe we thought that they were. And if at the start of the pandemic, you had said, it's going to be a year plus until we're back in the office, or we're all going to have to change how we work, I don't know that I would have been very confident in how we were going to get through that. And so when you step back and look what Brother and other companies have been able to do, it really is very remarkable. And I think that if you have the courage to trust your employees and, people in general, you really are surprised by what they can do. And for leaders, it takes courage to be consistent. It takes courage to give honest feedback, to raise the bar for performance. But when you do that, employees see that. And so when you're spinning or trying to shelter people from information, I think that the majority can see through that. So even though, the information you have to share may not always be the most positive or the most reassuring, I do think that being honest and having the courage to be vulnerable is going to make those employees trust you a lot more.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. I didn't even think about that perspective of have we all learned a year ago that we'd be in this position for a year. Who knows what that would be like if different at all, right? Because I believe we were all saying, well, this is going to go for a couple of months and then another couple of months. So That's a really great way to look at it. And I can't believe it's been a year that we've had these conversations. Well, very cool. Well, before we get to our final question, are there any other successful executives such as yourself that you would like to acknowledge while you're on this podcast?
For me, I always think that you should try to learn something from all of the executives that you work with. So, one of my earlier jobs, I reported into the head of sales, and he really instilled in me that everybody has a responsibility to make the company successful. So, you should bring your expertise to the table. So, in my case, maybe it's HR, but everybody sort of has their own background. But when you come to the table, you come as a business person. And that's really important. You should be thinking outside of your own box. You should be making sure that what's good for the company, the customers, the all of that is what comes first. And so for me, that was a great lesson. Here at Brother, I think the resilience that our executives have shown, they have been very vulnerable. They've been very open in communicating with our employees. And that for me has been very inspirational to see.
That's awesome. All right. Our last question is more of a fun one. You've had this incredible career and journey, but can you tell us about your first job? How did you get started?
So I guess my first actual job was at Subway. I was in high school. I was a sandwich artist. I will tell you that that is the first and only time that I've ever been fired. I didn't follow the rules. There's a lot of rules there on how you do stuff, and I think I had a little bit of creative license that was maybe not appreciated. But it actually wasn't a bad lesson. I've learned that I'm more of a guidelines than a rules person, and I needed to have a job where I could flex a little bit. My first real job in HR was for a company that was incredibly small headquarters with 10,000 employees, and they let me do a lot of stuff outside of HR because they were lean, because it was such a large organization. And for me, that was a great lesson in being able to flex and being able to provide what the organization needed from me at the time. And so very different first job experiences, but both things that gave me a strong foundation.
That's awesome. I love that experience. And I love that you're letting us know that you did get fired from Subway at the age of 16 or 17, however old you were, but that's a great story. Well, how could people get a hold of you or learn more about you or the company?
Sure. So Brother USA is our company LinkedIn page. So you can feel free to check us out and see some of what we're working on with our employees, our D&I efforts, and also our job postings. And then I am also on LinkedIn, Jennifer Garrard, so people can find me there as well.
Awesome. Well, I so appreciate you joining us today, Jennifer. And thanks everyone for tuning in. This is Anna Crowe. For more insights, visit us at crowepr.com. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.